Hey y'all, welcome back to AB Reads. I'm Olivia, and today I will be doing a book tag. This book tag is the birth year book tag by the wonderful Criminale. And no, I was not tagged to do this tag, and that matters not to me because look at this opportunity to talk about myself. I don't know what this book tag will lead me to do in the future, because it does have me thinking, because Ollie was saying, like, in creating this, the birth year book tag, is that people frequently like will read stuff that's like from before their time and then like new releases, but there's like a huge middle ground there between like classics and new releases. And specifically like thinking about like, have you even read any books from the year you were born? So without further ado, here we go. So the first question is, have you read any books from the year you were born? And if so, what's your favorite? Thankfully, I have read a book from the year I was born, because there's a caveat on this, that if you haven't read one, that you have to pledge to read one in the next 6 months. And whenever I was Googling books released in 1992, there weren't a ton that there weren't really ones that I had read that I saw. And so I did a little bit more digging, and so I don't think that I would have had to pledge one, because I saw that like Goosebumps started being released that year, and Magic Treehouse, which I know I've read plenty of those books. But I did see Playing in the Dark by Toni Morrison was released in 1992, and this is definitely going to be, it would have been my favorite even if I'd read a lot of other books from that year. I love Toni Morrison. I love her critical writing and her thoughts about literature, and definitely she just has, you know, a much bigger library of like references than I do. So it was definitely interesting, even like reading about like classics that I definitely didn't have on my radar, as well as her writing about the way that race is used in those books. And just, I love everything that I've read by Toni Morrison, so it doesn't surprise me that I also loved Playing in the Dark. You coming? You coming, baby? Come to say hey? What year were you born, Daisy? Have you read anything from the year you were born? No comment. A lady never tells. And then the next question is, have you read any books from the year you turned 18? Also, not many books that I've read from the year 2010. I was like, I hope we're not gonna have to say Mockingjay, because that's like the only book that I could see whenever I first Googled like 2010 books. But my pick for this year is probably gonna be, I think it's called For Mom, You Finally. For You, Mom, Finally by Ruth Reichl. And I listened to this on audiobook, I think in like a string of like food memoirs that I'd read, and I saw that also Bloody Raw by Anthony Bourdain was like released in 2010, which I would have told you that I had liked, but then like I looked at my Goodreads and I'd given it like a pretty iffy rating. So I don't know if that was just me feeling full of myself that day whenever I rated it, or if I really didn't like it, because I would have told you I did like it. But Ruth Reichl was like a food critic, like a restaurant critic for the LA. She was a food critic or restaurant critic for the LA Times, and then moved to New York to be a food critic. And so I'd read her book about that, something about diamonds, pearls. I don't even remember what that book title was called, but I loved that book. And then I also loved the book that I think I actually read from her first, was about being the editor of gourmet magazine, which was fascinating. I love food memoirs. If you have any food memoirs, please recommend them to me, because I would love to read more. I love hearing about food in the restaurant industry, even though it doesn't seem like a super pleasurable place to work. And then this book for you, Mom, finally, is it's only like 120 pages, or less than 150 pages, but it's about her rediscovering her mom through like letters and diary entries, and kind of seeing the progression of her mom from like a hopeful young person to like how she ended up being with Ruth, and like understanding your mom as like a person away from you rather than like just in that mother-daughter relationship, and being able to like empathize with your mom. And it's been a couple of years since I've read this, but I did see that it, like in my review, it's like it'll make you want to text your mom, like, and repair stuff, I guess. So that's probably the best book that I read in 2010, because it wasn't Mockingjay. The next question: of the last 10 books you've read, you read, how many were published before you were born? And if I'm doing the math correctly, then it's 1. Then it's Rocannon's World by Ursula K. Le Guin, which is actually her first published novel. I picked this up doing the like read Ursula. People are reading through her works in chronological order on Bookstagram. This is like a series, and I did not love this, so I might pick back up after they're finished with the series in the reading chronologically. But I don't really feel like the need to finish this. I will say I read it on audiobook, and it was very confusing. So like the second half of this question is like, do you prefer the book that was published before you were born to the newer books? And so for this case, no, even though I do read a lot of older books, but I just didn't love this book. It was like very vintage fantasy feeling, and like it wasn't all making sense to me over audiobook, because it's like a world building book in a series, and I didn't really follow it, honestly. And so no, I didn't prefer that, even though probably in many months I would say that I prefer the books that I read that were published before I was born to newer books. The next question is, what about your favorite movie from your birth year and why? So this is a hard one, because one movie that came out the year I was born is Candyman, which I love, but I'm gonna have to go with Ghostwatch. Ghostwatch is so good. Ghostwatch is a British TV film that was aired on Halloween 1992, my first Halloween, and was like one of the first like kind of like found footage things. Like it was aired as if it was like something that was really happening, and had people like freaking out about like this possession that was happening on air. So it was like a story that's set on Halloween night, and these like TV news reporters like go to like do coverage, like all night coverage of this haunted house in Britain. And like I've said many times before, British people are inherently very spooky, and this house is weird. All of the shots are weird. There's something about found footage that like actually like gives me the creeps. Like the idea of like catching glimpses of something in the background is so much more gripping for me whenever it's in a found footage form. And so you're watching this all unfold during like a hour-and-a-half news broadcast. And if you can find a place to watch Ghostwatch, I recommend it. I would recommend, like, I think it's worth saving for Halloween night. Like I think she's a main course. I think she's the turkey on the Christmas table, the tofurkey on the Christmas table, as it were. But Ghostwatch is like one of my favorite horror films of all time, so it's got to be her. I love her. the last question is, what's your favorite movie from the year you turned 18 and why? So also some choices here because at the time I never loved Tron Legacy. I loved the Tron Legacy soundtrack and I loved the original Tron. And then a movie that I've historically really loved is Black Swan, because I love the body horror in that, and there's just a lot that I can relate to, as far as like the horror around food in that film, and just I love a dance film, you know, like I love Suspiria is my favorite, so I love a dance horror film. I should probably say that Black Swan's my favorite, but like the movie that I've watched the most times that came out in 2010 is Life 2.0. Life 2.0 is a documentary about people who are really into Second Life. And this is like, I've watched this movie at least 4 or 5 times. And it's so easy for me to like put it on just to watch for a couple minutes and accidentally watch the whole thing. I find Second Life fascinating, and especially like people who spend all day on it, and it follows like different types of people. So it has like this woman who makes all of her money selling clothes on Second Life. So Second Life is a video game, if you don't know, and you just have like an avatar that can interact with people in the world. And I don't fully understand everything you can do in Second Life, but like in this situation, they had one storyline was a woman who made all of her money selling clothes on Second Life, so digital clothes. And then later in her storyline, there's like a hacker who like steals everyone's designs and like puts them up for like 1/10 of the price, and so like the people can't make money off of like the things they created anymore. And then one storyline is about this couple who are like already married but like met each other on Second Life and started cheating with each other, and how their relationship unfolds as they like leave their families and become a real couple. And then one storyline is about like a 20-year-old man who cosplays as, I say cosplay, like he plays on Second Life as a little girl. And so the adults as children scene. Do we like this? I'm almost finished with this. I'm just gonna have to be in the dark for the last couple minutes. It's fine. So Life 2.0, a documentary about Second Life. I like, and it's not from a judgmental point of view at all that I find it fascinating, because like I played World of Warcraft a lot, like literal years of game time in a, like I have played a lot of World of Warcraft, so I understand where these people are coming from who are on the computer from like literally sun up to sundown. Or as the woman entrepreneur Second Life player, she is like up from sundown to sun up because she like wants to be online like whenever no one else is online. It's fascinating. So probably Life 2.0, not the classiest choice, but we keep it real here. Like that's just honesty. So that is the birth year book tag. If you would like to do this tag, please do. I'm like basically in the dark here. Like I feel like Catherine Earnshaw right now. So do this tag if you so feel. Sorry, I'm like watching Daisy lose her mind. She's so beautiful. So do this tag if you so feel. I love to hear about, you know, books from different time periods, especially like none of the books that came out in 1992, I wasn't like any of that's why I'm really glad I'd already read one, because I was like, I don't want to read any of these books. None of them were on my shelf already. There's of course a couple Stephen King that came out that year. But But if you have any books from 1992 to recommend to me, then feel free to do so. And if you have a better movie from 2010, True Grit came out that year too. I love Jeff Bridges. So I don't need a better movie to replace Life 2.0. I'm proud that that's my favorite movie of 2010. But I'll talk to you all again soon. Bye-bye.